Hello everyone, and croeso to my garden, and I thought I'd take you on a quick June tour of how things are developing and how things are growing. It's been a bit of a challenge in spring, but things are finally picking up. The weather's fantastic, the bees are out pollinating, so I just thought I'd show you some of the things I've got growing. One of my most favourite parts of the garden currently is this allium bed that we created here. Now, we created this last year adjacent to the shed and planted it up with roses and herbs, and we split one large clump of chives into 4 individual clumps, and look at them, they've just completely plastered in flowers. And then we planted some alliums themselves in the autumn for spring colour, and they've all just blossomed at once, and they are teeming with bees, and it's just a really welcome sight. When you open up into the garden, you've got this mass of purple flowers welcoming you. So yeah, definitely something we experimented with, but I'm really happy with the outcome. In front of me in this bed, I've got a bed full of strawberries that we replanted from the bank in front of the garden, because the ones in that bank were about 3 years old. So obviously they lose their viability in terms of prolific cropping then. So we planted the runners in this bed, and as you can see, they're teeming with flowers at the moment. And I have been giving them a potassium feed from the comfrey tea that I've been creating in the garden, just to enhance that fruit development, so we have a nice large crop. And behind me here, I've got some tomato plants, and these are mountain magic. Now, if you live in a wet northern European climate, or even North America that doesn't have warm summers, I would suggest planting mountain magic as a variety of tomatoes. They're fantastic in cool, damp climates, but they also they have some blight resistance as well, so they withstand the blight in the garden, and this is definitely my favourite variety. So even if you haven't got a glasshouse or a greenhouse or a polytunnel, it doesn't mean that you can't grow tomatoes successfully outside in Wales or in Northern Europe. This used to be the strawberry bed, but once we moved them, we decided we wanted to create a herbaceous cottage-style border. So we planted it up with some lupins, some dianthus, some bellis perennis, so many different plants to attract pollinators into the garden. But as you can see with the lupins here, they're just coming into flower, and within about a fortnight, we should have a wall of colour here at this end of the garden. And I absolutely love lupins. I think they're very underrated. And the Welsh word for lupins is bysedd y blaidd, which translates as the wolf's fingers, very similar to the Latin lupina, referring back again to the wolf. And that's what I love about languages and gardening, the etymology of the words and the names. They're so descriptive, and they tell us a lot about the plants that we grow in the garden. But yes, let's fast forward in a fortnight, and hopefully we'll have a mound of colour here, all different colours and all different varieties as well. Well, as you can see, the raised beds are starting to fill up after a relatively slow start to the season, because the spring was very cold. But you know, despite that, there's always winners and there's always losers in the garden. For me, the rocket, the pak choi and the celery has done fantastically well this year, especially because of the cooler conditions. So that just shows you in a way that all the plants and all the different varieties that we grow in our gardens require such difference in the growing conditions. That means that there will always be a winner as well. So don't lose heart if you've planted stuff and think, oh, they haven't done well because of the unusually cold May, because I can guarantee you that there are other crops or plants in the garden that have done 100 times better. I'm in the greenhouse, and it's still full to the rafters with plants, but things are slowly but surely getting out into the garden. And as you can see with these baskets here, with this petunia, the calibrachoa there, these are starting to really grow out, so I need to move them now and hang them outside. But I've also got different crops in here, like this red cabbage here, that as you can see are maturing well and are ready to go into the garden. But I don't know about you, what I tend to do is I plan, and I plant a lot of seeds, and I realise that I've planted far too many, and then I'm starting to wonder, where am I going to put them? But that's gardening, and that's part of the fun, trying to squeeze things in everywhere. So sometimes I'll find a cabbage in a flower bed in the front of the garden, but it doesn't matter, because it's just trying to find a place for everything. I've also got some shallots and some leeks grown in the garden. I'm just potting them on to to make advantage really of the growing conditions in the greenhouse, because eventually they will go into the bed with the kales growing in the garden, but I'm leaving them flower for the bees at the moment. Now, One thing I would say, and this is an important tip, at this time of year it can get sweltering hot in the greenhouse, so if things don't need to be in here, get them outside and make sure that you water plentiful early on in the morning as well, and do it often, because it's surprising how quickly small seedlings can dry out in the greenhouse. In this bucket here, I've got potatoes growing, and as a gardener, experimentation is the best thing. I'm always experimenting with different growing techniques. And this year, I decided to fill it half and half with compost and with wool, just to see how well the crop develops if we have a good potato crop using less compost in the garden, because I'm sure, as you're aware, the cost of compost is quite pricey, and as well we can't generate enough compost in the gardens no matter how much we try. But from what I've seen so far, the wool seems to be holding the moisture in the pots better than other pots, because obviously it's not evaporating, so that's helping the potatoes retain moisture, which is good for early growth like this. These grew quicker than those without wool, and I think that's because of the insulation provided by the wool, because the black pots are, attracting the sun's heat during the day, but it can't escape during the night because it's insulated with the wool. And I just think, well, being a Welshman and in Wales, we have mountains of wool at our hand, and it's a fantastic resource if we can use it in the garden in a beneficial way to help us reduce our dependency on compost, but also produce good, healthy food like this. Then it's a winner for everyone. So hopefully I can report back maybe in August later on to tell you how my potato crop actually developed in these pots. In this little glass propagator here, I'm growing chilies and peppers, and hopefully planting them directly into the soil will mean that they have more access to moisture, because I must admit, as a gardener, I've always struggled to grow peppers and chilies well, because I always pot them up and plant them in pots in the greenhouse, and then I don't water them regularly enough, and they're quite greedy plants. They like a lot of moisture. But I was lucky to have this little grow frame from my wife's grandfather's garden, and I think this would be perfect for growing them in this garden. And as you can see, I've propped it open with a few wooden wedges like this, just because on a hot day like today, it's important that we get ventilation into the grow frame. It's also got a cracked pane here, which is brilliant for pulling the air through, because one of the main problems in growing any kind of chilies and fruit is powdery mildew, because we plant them compact together, they require a lot of water, and without the air circulation, the fruits don't mature quick enough and start dropping off because of the mildew. So fingers crossed, I will have a good crop of chilies this year for the first time in what feels like ever. But hopefully this is a good place for them in the garden. In this bed in front of me here, I've got the Cavolo Nero and the Russian kale in flower, as you can see, and it's absolutely teeming with all kinds of hoverflies and bees, and I absolutely love it at this time of year. And the reason I've left it to flower is for that very reason, because it's so beneficial to pollinators. And I always plan to plant the leeks then in the same bed in the following year from planting kale, because leeks don't need to be planted out into the garden until about mid-June, because I'm potting them on in the greenhouse. But it's just seeing the bees making use of the nectar source here, it's just fantastic. And that's what I want to talk about next, because as a gardener, we've taken a giant leap this year, and we've placed 2 beehives in the orchard, and I'm really excited about it. I was like a child at Christmas when the bees came in the nuke to the garden, because if we can do our little bit in this area to increase the population of pollinators, to help wildlife, to help gardeners, to help pollination, then I'm happy to do that as well. So let's come up and see the beehives for you to see how they're settling in already. And as you can see, our loyal Welsh Harlequin Quack Pack are guarding our entrance to the beehives, because they have taken charge now of the beehives in the orchard, and they're just chilling there, enjoying the fresh grass that's growing. So I'm going to have to move them gently but kindly to one side. Come on. Dawch chi de. Dawch chi. Dewch nawr. Here I am up in the orchard amongst the long grass and the wildflowers in the wild part of the garden, and finally I'm so excited to be able to say that we have our own colony of Welsh black honeybees in the beehive behind me. They were only established there yesterday and I'm so excited to see how they develop. Now we're very much beginner beekeepers, so any advice will be most grateful, and we're hoping to expand slowly as well into the other hive here as the season progresses. But I would like to say thank you to Gwenyn Gruffydd, a fantastic local company to us here, and Gruffydd is a brilliant beekeeper who have helped us establish the bee colony here, provided much of the equipment that we needed, and also some advice and support when we went on a course about a month ago now. I really couldn't recommend the course enough, and if you have a chance, check out his YouTube channel, and I'll put a link down in the video here as well, because it's full of hints and tips in terms of how you go about keeping bees yourselves as well. Well, that concludes our quick June garden tour. I hope it's shown you some of the things we've got growing here and how the garden's developed. And now as I'm up by the bees, as you can imagine, as a new beginner beekeeper, I could spend the rest of the afternoon just watching them flying in full of pollen sacs ready to develop the colony. But I hope this video has given you an idea of what we've got growing in the garden. And if you've got any questions, or if you'd like to know anything about what we've discussed in the video, please leave a comment. And if you enjoyed the video as well, please hit the thumbs up button, and you're welcome to subscribe. I hope you have a fantastic few weeks in the garden, and we'll be back soon with similar content. Diolch yn fawr.